Hello and welcome to another one of our RRH Rose Red Homestead classes right here. Rose Red Homestead class, and this one is Make Ahead Holiday Foods. And I want to send out a special thank you to our viewer who suggested that we do this video. From my background, I remember my mother on every holiday, even though she had a lot of children, I was one of them who helped with everything, cooking, cleaning, getting the house ready, the whole thing. But I remember that my mother, every single time after a holiday dinner, had to go back in her bedroom and lie down and either rest for a couple of hours or to even take a nap. And I did not really appreciate that until I had a family of my own and was doing the same thing. And I also had to do that, so much so that when Jim and I were married, he became very concerned. Every holiday that we had, Thanksgiving and Christmas, when the family gathered, and I would do everything that I usually do for a big, wonderful dinner, homemade this, homemade that, and put it all together, I was just exhausted. And he was concerned about that and has urged me for years to kind of slow down, not do so much. Well, I love doing special dishes at holiday time for my family that have become traditions in our family. I just am very reluctant to cut anything out. What doing the work for this video, the research, and actually doing what I'm teaching you about is going to revolutionize my holiday time. I'm so grateful for this. So I've kind of chunked it up. I've been working on this video for probably about 6 weeks. So you'll see me with longer hair, because I've just had a haircut recently. You'll see me with longer hair and in different shirts, because it takes place over about a 6 weeks time frame. And that thing that I want to urge you to do is to take the class, go through the class first, see everything that is presented, and then do the things that I'm going to tell you about right now. And that is, after you have seen everything, then select your recipes, your favorite holiday recipes. Now, this class is not about my recipes. I include some recipes for you, recipes that I'm trying out, some of them for the first time, and you're welcome to use those. But know that this is more about the procedure, about the principles behind what it is that we're going to do, rather than the recipes themselves. So you can make this your very own by using your very own recipes. So then, after you've selected your recipes, make sure that your kitchen is stocked before you start out. Stocked in terms of all of the ingredients that you will need to do what you need to do ahead of time, and then the equipment that you will need as well. And then after you have all of that done, analyze the recipes. So now that you're all ready to do them, you need to analyze which ones can be done completely ahead of time, a month in advance, 2 weeks in advance, 2 days in advance. Figure that out for your recipes. And then know that also sometimes there are recipes that you can't do the whole thing ahead of time. You have to do some things at the last minute, like whip the cream to put on the pumpkin pie. That can't be done 4 days in advance. And so divide your recipes into portions that you can do ahead of time. And there are several that I'm going to demonstrate in that way. Then make a calendar and start as far back as you want. For instance, this year I'm going to do my fruit pies a month ahead of time and put them in the freezer unbaked. And you'll see all about that in the pie section. So I'm going to start a month back. I could actually do it 4 months back if I wanted to, because that's how long fruit pies can keep unbaked in your freezer. So make your calendar, and then, really, really important, schedule your oven use so you don't have a lot of conflicts on the day of the holiday. I only have one oven. This is an oven and a microwave that we have over here. But I have a propane outdoor oven that I can use for some things. I have a turkey roaster that I can use for some things. And so I also have a trailer that has a small oven out in the driveway. So I have some options if I need them. I've actually worked it out so that I can do the whole thing in one oven on the day of the holiday. So I have a 4-page handout for you. It is, go to our website, and it is on the opening page. Just scroll down to the bottom and it will say RRH classes. And this one is called Make Ahead Holiday Foods. You can download this handout and print it for yourself. It does have links that you can click on if you keep it on your device. The links, some are for recipes and some are for other videos. And so you can follow along there. We're going to be covering 4 things. We're going to be covering pies, a whole big selection of side dishes, some breads, and the turkey. All of these have some aspects that can be done ahead of time. I now have my own time on the holiday down to under an hour and a half. And you can look and see on the very back page, I sort of have my schedule of what it is that I'm going to do. That schedule that you see on the back page is not this calendar. It's just a layout of kind of the foods that we're going to have, and then how far ahead that I'm going to have to do things, and then what will I be actually doing on the day of the holiday. So I think we're ready to go. Let's just jump right in. So this is our pie segment. Now, I don't know about your family, but our family, the holidays are synonymous with pies, 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 pies. From the time I was a teenager, I was helping to make the pies. Mother taught me how to make pie crust, and we often had 20, 30 people over for holiday dinners. And I would make a dozen pumpkin pies at a time. Pumpkin pies then were my specialty. We've started off with our theme of if you can't make the entire recipe several days ahead, then break up that recipe into pieces that you can do ahead of time. And that is the case with pies. And so it is really quite an easy thing to break up pie recipes and do them, some of the pieces quite far in advance. The first thing I recommend is that you make up a big batch of pie crust or buy it from the store. I make no judgments whatsoever of people who use store-bought pie crusts. All of you know that I'm a from-scratch person, so I always make a big batch of crust. My recipe makes 3 crusts, and I double or triple that recipe depending on the number of pies I'm going to make, which has diminished exponentially since we have moved here, because most of the time we have a much smaller family gathering. And then I package them in single crust baggies and then freeze them, and then I'll put these in a larger bag. So I have a bag of pie crust that I can pull out. It only takes about 40 minutes for these to thaw to the point where we can make pie with them. So I just put them back in the refrigerator because I want them cold when we are ready to use them. I've given you a couple of links on your handout sheet. One is our RRH class on making apple pie from scratch. And in that, I also share with you my pie crust recipe. I also have just a plain video on our favorite pie crust and show you how to do just the crust. And it is really it's a great crust. It's almost a no-fail crust. The other thing that I highly recommend is that we make some of our pie fillings ahead of time. Now, the alternative to this is that you can buy canned pie filling, but make it in advance. Make it the day before. You're going to actually put the pie together. If you don't have your own canned pie filling in jars out on your food storage, I have cherry and I have apple. I have given you a link to the USDA list of fruit pies and other pies that you can do this very same thing with, making those fillings in advance. It is so fantastic to just walk out to our food storage and grab a quart of pie filling and then whip up a pie in just a couple of minutes, the way I'm going to show you in just a minute. And then there are other things that you can do as well. So right now we're going to start with what we can do with pumpkin pies. Pumpkin is one of the favorite pies for the holiday season. And can I just share with you my secret recipe? It's on the back label of Libby. That is the pie recipe that I have used for 50 years. And then I'm just going to, instead of pouring it into a crust and baking it, this is my do-ahead part. I'm putting it in this jar. And now this is going in the refrigerator for up to 4 days. So I can start this 4 days before I'm going to be baking it. So into the fridge it goes. On to fruit pies. And you can look at the recipe for the USDA to see which fruit pies this would apply to. So The things that I have done ahead of time to save time are, of course, the frozen pie crust, and this is now thawed, and my home canned pie filling. So if you have done those two things, you have already saved yourself a couple of hours anyway. And we're just going to do a cherry today. So this is so wonderful, just so easy to open up this cherry pie filling and just dump. Because I've done all the work previously. And these were cherries that we got up in northern Utah. So several weeks in advance, you can get your fruit pies ready. This is going in the freezer outside on a level shelf. And once it is frozen, then I will bring it back in the house and put it in a plastic bag. And we will come back in several days after it's frozen solid, and we will bake both our cherry pie and our pumpkin pie. And then after that, we're going to do a cream pie, and I'll show you how to do those. It has been 4 days since we put this cherry pie in the freezer. Time to bake it. After it had frozen solid, I brought it back in the house and put it in this plastic bag, and then put it back out in the freezer. So it is solid as can be. So here's how we do this. We do not thaw this pie. Instead, I'm going to cover the top with foil, just gently. And we are going to bake it for 15 minutes in a 450 oven. Hey Siri, set timer for 15 minutes. All right, it's set. And so let me get it in. After it has baked for 15 minutes, we reduce the temperature in the oven to 375 and bake it for another 15 minutes. At the end of that 15 minutes, we reduce it to 350, pull the foil, and bake it until it is done. What I'm going to do during that first 15 minutes is get the pumpkin pie ready to go, and then we can put it in the oven. I've put the cherry on one side, so I can slip that pumpkin pie in on the other side once we get the temperature down to 375. And then it can continue to cook right along with the cherry pie until it is also done. So we'll see you at the 15-minute mark. So the buzzer is just about to go off. This is our pumpkin pie filling that has been in the refrigerator untouched for 4 days. I'm just going to give it a quick little stir to make sure everything is all evenly distributed throughout the filling. And then we're just going to pour it into our pie filling, pie crust. All right, I'm going to put this in and reduce the temperature to 375, and we will be back when the pies are done and ready to take out. Here we are. Our pies are done. They're not cold. They're still quite warm, but they're both out of the oven. We had a little bit of leaking on the cherry pie. I usually never get leaking, so it just may have had to do with the fact that it was pre-frozen. I'm very pleased with how both of these turned out. Now, speaking of cream pies, I want to get you started on that. With cream pies, you cannot do them days ahead. You can't do them and then freeze them unless it is a frozen pie. Then you can do it ahead of time. I think we'll do one cream pie and one cream pie that is a frozen pie, so I can show you how to do those. Both of those pies are going to require a pre-baked pie crust. And so while I was doing these other pies, I just did a pre-baked pie crust to show you. Now, sadly, Jim and I were both working on editing a video, and I kind of lost track of time, and so this got a little bit overdone, but I'm not sure that it is beyond the point of being able to eat. I'll decide a little bit later, but I want to show you how I do that. A lot of times when I do individual pie crusts like this, they bubble up and the sides slump so bad that the pie hardly fits in the pan. And I've been frustrated all my life on that. Well, I got smart and bought some pie weights, and they come in this little container. They're called Pie Weights Baking Beans, and they're just little ceramic balls. And right now they're just in an empty pie plate. So let me show you how I do it. I have a freshly made pie crust in this pan. The pan is exactly like this one. And I have the pie weights ready to go. So I just put them right down in the pie and distribute them all around. and I leave them in place. I had pricked, I think you saw where I had used a fork and pricked, and you can see the prickings on this one as well. I pricked the crust, that kind of helps it from bubbling up or from slumping. And then I bake this only for about 15 minutes, enough to get the dough to set. And then I'll go in and take these out and let it finish cooking on its own. And it seems to do a really good job that way. So I'm gonna go ahead and put this in a 400 oven. So when we come back after 4 or 5 days of these being frozen, then we will be able to use them and see how well they worked to do it this way. So we'll see you soon with the next episode with cream pies. We are ready now to finish up the segment on pies by talking about how we can do a little bit toward making these pies ahead of time. We're not able to do too much ahead of time, but we can do one big thing ahead of time, and that is to make the pie crusts and bake them as we just showed you. I just took these out of the freezer. They've probably been there a week, and here is one, and here is the other. This one is the one that I think got a little overdone, but in looking at it today, I think it will be just fine. So we are going to make 2 cream pies today, or finish up, because most of the work I've already done, especially on the sour cream lemon pie. That's the one we're going to be doing first. So the recipe for this sour cream lemon pie is in your handout. This is a family favorite recipe that has been in our family for over 50 years. And we love it. So here's what it looks like when you have mixed up the first part of the filling. This is most of the ingredients, everything except the sour cream, which I'm going to be stirring in right now. With cream pies, you can make them pretty much a day ahead. But the crust, of course, can be made quite a bit ahead, which is what we did. So I'm going to just stir in this sour cream. Make sure everything is all stirred. And we're going to just fill this pie shell. So here it is. It is done. Now what we will do is we will chill this. If I were making this for a holiday, I would do it the night before. And it would be in the refrigerator overnight with plastic wrap over the top. And then I would whip the cream and just cover it with whipped cream. And if we wanted to, we could garnish it with a little bit of lemon zest or lemon curls or whatever. So this one is done. It's very, very easy. This one is raspberry cream pie, and the link is in your handout. This is a Pioneer Woman recipe. She usually does a really good job. This is a raspberry cream pie, but it is not like this cream pie in that you can make this one actually a couple of days ahead of time because it is served frozen or nearly frozen. So I've already done to the raspberries what the recipe calls for. Now, this recipe also calls for the crust to be an Oreo cookie crumb crust. And I know many of you will opt for that option. Frankly, I just don't care for Oreo crust. I don't like the chocolate crust with the raspberry pie, even as delicious as that may sound. So my preference is to put it in one of my baked pie shells. But you can do anything you want to. The recipe for the crust is in the recipe handout, so that is good. But we're going to pick it up for the filling. So these have been sitting out. I've mashed them with a fork. They have sugar on them. They've been sitting for about 15 minutes. In this bowl, I'm now going to mix the yogurt, which is 2 cups of raspberry yogurt. And to this, we are going to add the pudding mix. And this is just vanilla instant pudding. And then we're going to stir this for just a minute. We are going to now pour in the whipping cream. And again on low for about 30 seconds to mix. And now we're going to take it up and whip it until it's all, let's see what it says. The exact words are, until the mixture is thick. And then we stir in the raspberries. This looks really yummy. So I'm just going to take a little taste. Oh, so creamy. It really is soft and smooth on your tongue. So this one now goes into the freezer, and we freeze it for at least 2 hours before serving, or you can hold it for a couple of days. So this could be made ahead of time. So we have our 2 cream pies, and every one of the pies that we have shown have had some aspect of them as do ahead. So here we go with our little section on side dishes. Probably the most popular side dish for holiday meals is mashed potatoes and gravy. It is for my family, and it has been for years and years. I have always found making mashed potatoes tedious, and I dread it because you have to wash the potatoes and peel the potatoes and cook the potatoes, and when they're done you have to take them out and put them in your mixer and beat them up and add your milk and seasoning, whatever else you're going to do, and all the while keep it hot so that you can put it on the table just as dinner is served. And I'll tell you, making a holiday meal is like, everything has to be orchestrated just exactly right. Timing the rolls, timing the pies, timing the potatoes and everything. Well, the great news is that mashed potatoes can be either refrigerated for up to 4 days, or, are you ready for this, frozen for up to a month in advance. And then you just thaw, or you take them out of the refrigerator, and then you can warm them any one of several ways, and I've listed those ways on your handout. So today I have cooked just a few potatoes. I had some left in the bottom of a bag, and I've done a few, and we're going to just do that. Now I am using a brand new tool today. I've not ever used a potato ricer, and this is an OXO, and I will put it under the product list under the video so that if you want to check it out, you can. So I'm going to keep it on the very fine grid. Now, what about skins? Well, I have cooked my potatoes with skins on because this is supposed to eliminate the skin. So let's see if it does. Oh my gosh. And it did. It just eliminated those skins beautifully. The skins stayed in the compartment. So much better than peeling. A little bit of a hassle getting the skins out. Now what we want to do when we do mashed potatoes this way is to put lots of butter and some cream in there. Until we get just the right consistency. You want to mix up your potatoes the way you normally do. Oh, do I love that ricer. How easy, easy, easy. So you want to season them and do everything that you would ordinarily do, getting your potatoes ready. You can put them in your freezer, which is what I'm going to do. Actually, I think what I will do is put one in the freezer and one in the refrigerator. Okay, we have 2 packets that fit our family just perfectly. One I'm going to put in the refrigerator, one I'm going to put in the freezer, and we'll be back later to see how they did. It has been several days since we put one of these potato packets, mashed potato packets, in the refrigerator and one in the freezer. This one has thawed, and I'm just getting ready to reheat it. I'm going to break the seal on the baggie so the steam can escape, and I'm going to put it in the microwave. I'm going to start it at 90 seconds, and we'll see what happens after that. So I have, probably like you, I have put leftover mashed potatoes in the refrigerator many times and reheated them in the microwave, and they've turned out just fine. But this is the first time that I have done any from frozen. So I'm anxious to see how these are going to do. They appear to be pretty hot. Sometimes they need to be freshened up a little bit with a little bit more butter, a little bit more cream. Wow, these look just great. So I'm going to get a spoon and have just a little taste. They're perfect. They're not hot enough, so I will run these in the microwave a little bit more, probably another minute. They felt pretty hot in the bag, but not quite hot enough. So I am thrilled. And you can better believe I am going to be doing my mashed potatoes several days early and freezing them. Well, we have just finished talking about mashed potatoes as a side dish and the several ways that you can make them in advance, including freezing them, in order to buy yourself some time on that heavy cooking day that we know as holidays. So what about sweet potatoes? Sweet potatoes are also a very popular side dish for holiday dinners, and there are a million recipes for how to do sweet potatoes, candied and sweet and savory and baked and fried and whatever you want. So there are some that lend themselves very well to doing in advance. And I've always just made a little casserole with sweet potatoes that I sprinkle brown sugar and marshmallows in and then bake it. That's one way to do it. But I am trying a new recipe because I want to show you how easy it is to work with sweet potatoes. Now, Jim got these sweet potatoes for me last week, and 4 days ago, I baked them. So one way that you can save yourself some time is to bake them in advance and just put them right in your refrigerator. And so I'm now going to just cut this in half, and I'm going to scoop the flesh out from the skin so I don't get any of the skin in here. And we are going to make a little sweet potato casserole according to the recipe that is in your handout. So the recipe is very easy to follow. I'm going to continue doing this. It calls for an addition of melted butter and milk and maple syrup and vanilla and salt with a pecan topping that has butter and brown sugar. And so it is a very, very simple recipe. Now you can either bake the sweet potatoes ahead of time and put them in the refrigerator until you are ready to put the casserole together, or you can put the casserole together, cover it with plastic wrap or a lid if your baking dish has a lid on it, and keep it ready to put in the oven for 3 or 4 days, up to 4 days ahead of time. And so either way you do it, you have saved yourself a lot of time on the big day. Now, this is a mashed sweet potato recipe. This recipe is enough for a 9x9 pan, and I have a little dish that approximates a 9x9. So we're going to get this all ready to put in the oven and bake it, and then we will come back when we're taking it out of the oven so you can see what it looks like. It's just barely out of the oven. It has made this house smell wonderful, almost like pumpkin pie. So I'm going to take just a little tiny taste. It took about 35 minutes for it. Now this has a little bit of snipped rosemary in it, so it has a little bit of a savory taste. It's my new sweet potato dish for holidays. It's fabulous. Those candied pecans on the top give a really, really nice addition to the flavor. And the sweet potatoes themselves, it has milk in it, it has butter in it, and then some spices and that sort of thing. And so the directions say that after it's baked, you can even store it in the refrigerator for another 4 or 5 days if you have leftovers. So this is a wonderfully versatile dish that will save you a lot of time because it can be done well in advance one way or the other. Another one of the side dishes that is really universal if you're going to be fixing a turkey is stuffing. And it used to be very popular, probably still is, to actually stuff the turkey with the bread mixture that is known as stuffing or dressing, and then pull it out, and the juices seep into it, and it's just really wonderful. However, the recommendation now is not to do that. It gives too much opportunity for bacteria contamination, which includes botulism. And so the recommendation is to cook your stuffing on the side in a different dish. One of my experiences is, as I talk to different people, and all my life I've talked about what's your stuffing recipe, everybody has pretty much a very family favorite stuffing recipe that they are pretty protective of, and they don't want to change it. They love it just the way it is. And my family is no exception. We have a stuffing recipe that I started years ago that my children are now duplicating. Adding another dish that we have to put in the oven and have nice and hot as we put our dinner on can be very complicating because maybe we don't have enough room. I only have one oven, as I've mentioned several times. And so what are some alternatives that we could do in order to get that stuffing hot and serve it with the other hot things at the dinner table? Well, first of all, let me tell you what my secret ingredient is in my stuffing. Ta-da! Yes, it is a mix. And I, who usually love to make things from scratch, started using this a long time ago when my children were little and my time was so crunched all the time. So I just use this, and what it does, it saves me a ton of time because the bread is already ready to go, the seasonings are already in here, and all I have to do to make this package is to add a couple of cups of chicken broth, or I have turkey broth out there that I can also use, and when I say out there, I mean in my food storage, that I can also use turkey bone broth for this stuffing. And then a cup of diced celery and onion. It is a cup each, so a couple of cups of those. And so I pretty much follow the recipe on here. Sometimes I will put a little bit more of the celery and onions because we really like it. And then I usually will just grease the inside of a bowl like this, a baking dish like this, and put the stuffing in here and bake it in the oven. Not this year. Because in all of my research for this class, one of the things that I discovered was there are a number of people who use their slow cooker for making their stuffing. Oh, what a brilliant idea. It takes it out of the oven, it cooks it slow, and so the way to save time on this would be to mix up everything ahead of time, put it in the refrigerator, keep it ready to go for 3 or 4 days even, and then when you are on Christmas morning or Thanksgiving morning or whatever holiday morning you're going to be preparing the stuffing, then you can put it in your slow cooker and cook it 3 or 4 hours on low or less on high, and then it will be ready. The one thing that you'd need to watch out for in doing it this way is to be sure that it doesn't dry out. Have a little extra broth ready to dampen it if necessary. So I'm not going to actually do that for you because everybody has their own recipe, but just something to think about in using your own recipe to try it in your slow cooker and see if you like it, because it frees up oven space, and that's always a plus. Cranberries are another item that is very traditional during the holiday season. And fortunately, cranberry recipes mostly can be either portioned out and part of them made ahead of time, or the whole thing can be made ahead of time. Cranberry sauce is one thing that is used quite widely, and I have given in the handout a video on cranberry orange sauce that you can water bath can ahead of time. And that is absolutely delicious. And I have some already made, but last year when we were planning to move, I packed a whole lot of things up and I still haven't found it yet. So it's out there somewhere, but I just couldn't bring you an example to show. But what I am going to show you is our family favorite cranberry salad. This cranberry salad is just a little bit different than a lot of cranberry salads are, but it became an instant favorite and is still used by my adult children today in their own family celebrations. It is a wonderful recipe and very easy to make. And this one is easy to do in 2 chunks. one chunk, which we're going to do right now. You can do 2 or 3 or 4 days ahead of time. And then on the night before, you just whip the cream and add it and stir in the what we've stored in the refrigerator. You whip the cream and add marshmallows, stir that together, let it chill overnight, and by the day of the holiday, your beautiful salad is ready to go. So here's what it calls for. It calls for a pound of cranberries. The original recipe was done years ago when cranberries came in 1-pound packages. And of course, like so many things like ice cream and other things, what the producers have done is keep the price the same, but reduce the amount that is found in the packages. I have in here is 1 full package and 1/3 of another package that have been washed. And then these cranberries need to be chopped. And so I'm just going to use, whoops, I missed it. I'm just going to use my little chopper, which, I just use it all the time. It is so wonderful. I originally bought it for my trailer. Go ahead, ask me if I've used it out in my trailer. No, because I use it so much in here. So here we go. And that's it. I'm just going to pour this on top of the pineapple, which I've already put in here. And it is a 20-ounce can of crushed pineapple that I drained and then put in the bowl. That was so easy. Now we just add 1 cup of sugar to the cranberries and the pineapple and stir it together. And this just sits out here on the cabinet for 2 hours. This has been sitting for a little over 2 hours, so I'm just going to dump it right in this colander and then back in this bowl. And we just want to get some of the juice out of this so that the salad isn't too runny. Now we are going to interrupt the progress on this and just refrigerate it for 2 or 3 days. And here we are, going in the refrigerator for 2 to 3 days, and we'll come back and put this together at that point. It is the night before the big holiday, and how do we finish up this salad? We reach into the refrigerator and get the main part of the salad that we did 3 days ago. I have the marshmallows already in the bottom of the bowl. So next comes this part. And we add to that a pint of whipped cream, and I always add a little bit of extra sugar and some vanilla to the whipped cream. We pick out a beautiful glass serving bowl, and we move the salad right into the serving bowl. And then we just cover it with plastic wrap. Put it in the refrigerator to chill overnight, and the next day when we are ready to serve, we take this out at the last minute, take the plastic wrap off the top, put a spoon in there, and it is ready to go. Easy peasy. Another very traditional side dish is green beans in some sort of a recipe or other. I think probably the most well-known is the mushroom soup casserole with green beans and the soup, and then sprinkle the top with canned fried onions. And that is a big favorite. And you can certainly make that a day before and then bake it the day of. But again, it takes up your oven space. And so I have experimented with a number of green bean recipes. My daughter loves the mushroom soup and green bean with the onions on the top casserole. So that's what she usually brings for holiday dinners, and I'm just perfectly happy with that one. But meanwhile, I'm doing some experimenting. And this one, I believe, is from Pioneer Woman, and it just looked very intriguing to me. It is a slow cooker recipe, and this one you can slow cook for 3 hours on high, and then you can cool it and put it in your refrigerator and for a day or two, and then on the day you can get it out, put it in your slow cooker, cook it for another hour, and add the last ingredient, which is a little bit of apple cider vinegar, and then you sprinkle the top with crushed bacon before you serve it. So I have done a gathering of everything, and what we are going to do is just cook it and then pretend like we're going to serve it. But you know that you could interrupt it after the 3 hours, refrigerate it, and then bring it back and add the vinegar for another hour. So the first thing that it calls for is to fry 8 pieces of bacon. Now, if you are going to put it in the refrigerator for 2 or 3 days, be sure that you set aside 4 pieces of the bacon in a plastic bag and hide it from whoever in your family is a bacon lover. In our family, you know who that would be, but I won't tell, but his name begins with J, so that it won't get devoured in the meantime. So what we're going to do is, I've already done the bacon, and I did it in this pan right here, and then it said to leave the drippings in place, which I did. It's been a little while, so it's setting up a little bit. And then it says to add 1/4 cup of, is it chicken broth? Yes, 1/4 cup of chicken broth, and scrape any brown bits off the bottom. There were not a lot of brown bits, but I'm going to just do it so that you can see. And then this goes in the cooker. So after the onions with the bacon drippings are in, then you add the tomatoes, and this is just a can of tomatoes from our food storage. And then add the tomato sauce. That's some of my home canned tomato sauce. And then here are all of the seasonings. So I'm going to stir all of that together. And then we also add half the bacon, which of course would be 4 of the pieces. And so I'm just going to cut it up in little pieces, crumble it, and I'm going to push this over on high. And right here we have 2 pounds of, set the bacon aside here, 2 pounds of green beans. And I just cut the tip ends off. So I'm going to put them in. So this is going to be a red and green dish. It looks lovely. And there we go, for 3 hours. Then we'll come back, add the vinegar, cook it for an additional hour, and then we will try it out. And the other bacon we will save to sprinkle on the top after we put it in the serving dish. So we'll see you shortly. Well, these beans turned out phenomenal. It's getting dark, so our lighting might be just a little bit different. These have cooked for 4 hours in the slow cooker, with the last hour along with the red wine vinegar as called for in the recipe. And I've dished up about half of them. If you can come over here and see, there's still at least this many more in the slow cooker. But here's how they might look on your holiday table. And it is a nice colorful dish with these green beans and then the red sauce. It looks a little bit, with the tomato, it looks great. And then I've put 1 piece of the crumbled bacon on the top. And the great thing about these, and I just want to, I don't know if you can hear this. After 4 hours of cooking, these green deep beans are not mushy. They still have a good bite and a good texture to them. This is, oh, these are wonderful. They're savory. The crushed red peppers gives it just a little bit of a bite. And the other spices just give this such a nice, nice flavor. With the bacon in the background, these are wonderful. So, lovely addition if you want to try it. The recipe is there. Yes, one of the major dishes for a lovely holiday dinner is some kind of bread. Probably the most popular is rolls. Now, you don't have to make homemade rolls. You can buy them from the grocery store or the bakery. I have always had a tradition in our family to make my homemade rolls, and these butter rolls are just amazing. I have given you the link to the recipe and a video that shows how with this one recipe you can make it 5 different ways. It makes 6 dozen rolls, and or you can trade off with cinnamon rolls or dessert rings or a lot of different things. Now, the great thing about this is that it is a refrigeration recipe. You refrigerate the dough overnight. So when I got it out of the refrigerator just a little bit ago, it's very, very cold, which arrests the rising, which is good because I'm going to stick this in the freezer. The great thing about yeast breads is that you can freeze them after the first rise, and freeze them for up to a month or even more. And then you put them in the refrigerator on the baking tray overnight, and then the next day you take them out of the refrigerator, let them rise, and then you bake them, and that's what we're going to do. So this is the very last of the 6 dozen. I have already another tray that is out in the freezer. I'm just going to freeze these, and you want to freeze them very, very quickly. Shape them, but do not let them rise. They have risen the first time in the whole mass of dough. But when you get ready to shape them quickly and then get them in the freezer. So I'm going to go get these in the freezer, and I'll be right back. Cleaned up a little bit here. My hands still have flour on them. But it is just great to be able to freeze yeast dough and then as it is made into rolls. Now, you might have noticed that I didn't cover those rolls with anything, and I'm not going to until they are completely frozen. Once they're frozen in several hours, maybe in the morning, because it's late afternoon right now, I will bring them into the kitchen and remove them from the baking pan and put them in a plastic bag, probably a double plastic bag so they don't get freezer burn, and then they are good for several weeks in the freezer. And then you take out whatever you want and arrange them on a baking sheet in the refrigerator and let them thaw overnight. And then the next day, just in time for dinner, you want to get them out, give them enough time to warm up and do their final rise, and then you can bake them and have them fresh, and it's a wonderful thing. You can do the same with cinnamon rolls, or in the video, I show a beautiful little what we call a cinnamon ring. You can do the same thing to those cinnamon rings. Just make sure that you get them in the freezer just as soon as they are shaped, whether it's rolls or the cinnamon ring. We will come back in several days and I will show you how they turn out after they have been in the refrigerator overnight and then baked the following day after having been frozen. Here we have 6 dozen frozen rolls, double bagged. They've been in the freezer for a couple of days, so it is time to show you what can happen when I'm just going to get a dozen. So I've sprayed this little baking sheet with some of the spray oil. I'm going to put these in the refrigerator just exactly like this overnight, and then we will get them out tomorrow, let them rise completely, and we will bake them tomorrow. So in the fridge they go. Here are our rolls after about an hour and a half of rising. Because these are refrigerator rolls, it often takes them a little bit longer to rise. So as you are perhaps using your own recipe, you might want to try it out before the actual holiday so that you can make sure that you nail down how long it takes your rolls to rise. These are going in the oven right now, and we will come back as soon as we take them out. Here they are right out of the oven. Beautiful, light, airy, puffy, just right to go on the table. And you probably never would have thought that those little dinky rolls of dough would plump up into these nice size rolls. But that is the joy of this particular recipe. So we have one more thing to show you in the bread segment. The last item in the bread section is this overnight French toast casserole. A lot of times we, and maybe your family as well, like to have kind of a special breakfast on the morning of the holiday, Christmas morning in particular. And that is just one more thing that we have to take care of on the day of the holiday. And so instead of taking all the time to flip pancakes or get out the waffle maker or do anything like that, a quick overnight casserole is just the thing. It will be a time saver, it is delicious, and it is just a little bit elegant, especially this one. This one is the recipe by Pioneer Woman that is in your handout, and it is made with challah bread. Now, I have also put the video link to the video that we made on how to make challah bread. And we are so impressed with this, especially as a holiday bread. And so the challah bread is in the Jewish tradition. It is used on special holidays and on the Sabbath. And so we used about 3/4 of that loaf that we made in the video, cut it into pieces that are about a 1/2 inch square and used it here. Now, the original recipe calls for this to be blueberries. Well, I did not have blueberries, and what I did have in my freezer was a great big package of frozen blackberries and another one of frozen raspberries. And I could have used either one, and I put them in while they were still frozen. These are the blackberries. I put 1.5 cups of frozen blackberries in this. Also, you might notice that it has dollops of cream cheese tucked in among the chunks of bread and the fruit. And then the custard is lovely. It is 8 eggs, some half and half, and some cinnamon and vanilla. And so overnight, this was covered. I put it in a plastic bag, and the bread is now all saturated with the custard. So the last thing to do is to just sprinkle the top with the last 2 tablespoons of sugar called for in the recipe. And then we're going to put it in the oven and bake it for 45 to 50 minutes. And we'll be back when it comes out of the oven so you can see what it looks like when it's all finished. This is just out of the oven, and here's a little close-up of it. It looks absolutely beautiful. It smells divine. So I'm just going to take a little bit of a taste here, go into one corner. It's nicely set up. It is a lovely, very nice taste. The fruit is wonderful. The blackberries are wonderful. And so I know that you could substitute any other fruit there as well. So that closes out our breads, and you can use your own recipes using the strategies that we have learned here for bread, especially with yeast breads and doing them ahead of time. Here we are at the very last food that we're going to think about to prepare holiday meals. What was really interesting was that yesterday in my newsfeed on my phone, I came across a survey that the turkey industry had done from supposedly several hundred random people, asking them what their preference was in terms of the meat that they serve for particularly Thanksgiving. And 87% came back and said that they serve turkey, and 75% said that they, of that 87%, said that they would be roasting a full turkey in the oven. And so turkey looks like the most popular meat. There is not a whole lot we can do if we want to serve a beautiful bird as a center showpiece. I'm way beyond that. I don't even do that anymore. We just serve the meat on a platter. But there are lots of ways that you can cook that. The thing that I do that saves me just a little bit of time is I do use turkey bags. And turkey bags can be purchased in any size. This is a 16-pound bird, so you can get a bag that is up to 16 pounds or even more, up to even, I think, 23 pounds. We've roasted a great big bird, a 23-pounder before, in a turkey bag. And it's very easy to do, and it makes a delicious and moist turkey. And it even comes out quite pretty. So if you do want to do a centerpiece, you could do it in a bag. We've made a video on that. The link is in your handout. So the big thing to remember about your turkey is thaw it in the refrigerator 2 or 3 days ahead of time so it gets completely thawed. Don't thaw it out on your countertop. And then the other thing is, do not stuff your bird. Now, the video that we have a link to was before they came out with a recommendation, or at least before I saw the recommendation, that they no longer recommend, the USDA and others no longer recommend to stuff a bird because of the threat of contamination by bacteria, particularly botulism. So I don't do that anymore. I cook it on the side, and we've shown you how to do that in this video. But instead, I will fill the cavity with things like lemon slices and celery and carrots and onion and that sort of thing, aromatics, to help with the flavor of the bird and the flavor of the gravy. So, and then, of course, I make the gravy while we remove the bird from the bag. I'll pour the drippings into a pan and make the gravy. That is the only thing I can't do ahead of time. But I can put the turkey in the bag and get it all ready to go and put that in the refrigerator. So all I have to do on the day of the holiday is just take it out, put it on the pan, and put it in the oven. So that is a little bit of a help. So that brings us to a close of this class. I hope it has been helpful for you. I have learned so much by my research and by actually doing the things that I have shown you about. And as I mentioned in our opening segment, Jim has been concerned for years about the impact on my stamina on the day of the holiday, because I just spend from early morning until evening with the cleanup, and he has been after me to simplify for years and years. I think he will be very pleased this year. In going through the menu that is the last entry on the worksheet, on the handout that I gave to you, I've given you sort of a typical menu for us. We have other things, specialty kind of things like a relish tray and things that I didn't put on that. But you can just look down that last column, and that's what I'm going to be doing on Thanksgiving Day, on Christmas Day. And it is amazingly brief. Such a reduction from what I usually do. So to conclude, make ahead holiday foods. We select our recipes, we stock the kitchen, we analyze the recipes for which ones can be made completely ahead of time, or how we can break the recipes and do part of it ahead of time. We make a calendar and we schedule our oven use to see if we have enough oven space and time to do what we want to. So thank you so much for joining us for this class. We really appreciate your coming to this class. So please enjoy your worry-free, work-free holiday.